but there's also many people from Davidson and other parts of the country. So to give some perspective, when people think of Annapolis, they think of a historical capital, a beautiful capital, a beautiful city between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, Maryland. We are the sailing capital of the world. We're also home to the United States Naval Academy. These are things that people in Annapolis and people outside of Annapolis, such as tourists, perceive when they think of, when they visit Annapolis. But as you will see later today, there are two realities that not even all people in the city fully understand. This is not the reality of luxury that Sura, this is not the luxurious reality that Sura was able to grow up. Instead, there's the analogy of crabs in a bucket. I like this photo because these are Maryland blue crabs and a bushel of crabs. Those who've been to Maryland, they know that we are known for great crabs, crab cakes, seafood in general, but specifically Maryland blue crabs. Sura made a great analogy one time in one of our interviews, and that was, for his situation, he always viewed himself as a crab in a bucket. What does that mean? It means that for those who have been crabbing, they know when they have crabs in the bucket, none of them will leave. Those who haven't been, if you put many crabs like this in the bucket, you don't have to worry at all about a crab getting out. Maybe if it's stacked too high like this, it can, but that's very rare. You don't have to worry about the crab pinching you or getting out or whatever. Sura views himself as being a crab in that bucket. A difficult situation that's almost impossible to get out because people will pull you down if you start to get to the top. That's exactly what happens to crabs. Now, Sura and I first met ourselves at Hillsmere Elementary School in Annapolis, Maryland. This is when Sura moved to the district I was living in 2010. This is our first class photo together. As you can see, I'm towards the bottom left of the class photo. Sura's towards the bottom right. I'm actually right next to one of Sura's brothers, who's on the call today, Chris, to the left of me. And as you can see, Sura is over on the side. This is a picture of Hillsmere Elementary. We both feeded into Annapolis Middle School together. That was our district middle school. Please excuse these photos. People say it's cute. Please no screenshots. I don't know. You know, we were fortunate that we were able to glow up and progress from those looks. But yeah, I just wanted to give some perspective on Sura and I and our situation. As you can see, we're in PE class right here, having a good time. I don't remember what we're talking about, but that was good. Robinwood. This is where Sura grew up. Sura moved to Robinwood in 2010. When I talk about a crab in a bucket, this is the neighborhood or the circumstances Sura was living in. Okay, these are 4 panels of Robinwood. In the top right panel, you can see an example of a complex of Robinwood. Sura didn't live in that exact one, but it looks very similar. They replicate each other in the community. Okay, as you can see in the 3 other photos, these are some headlines in the news where there have been deadly shootings in this community on a regular basis. If you look at the top left photo and the bottom right photo, you can see that those 2 events were only 20 days apart from each other. A 23-year-old getting killed and a 17-year-old getting killed.
And the picture is showing the difference between black crime and white crime. There is no difference.
The same age as Sura and I went to school with us. Killed at 17 in this community. Okay, that was devastating. But after that, it's become, unfortunately, more regular for people our age to die in this community. It's a difficult community to grow up in. This is what Sura had to deal with when he was coming up. He will talk a little bit later about that experience. I want to display here a fork in the road. That's why I put the line down the middle separating the 2 panels. As I was showing earlier, Sura and I went to school together, elementary and middle school. High school was when our paths split, okay? I was awarded a full academic scholarship to Indian Creek School through their STARS program. For those who are from Annapolis, they know that Indian Creek is an expensive, top school in the city of Annapolis, or even in the county, Anne Arundel County, Maryland. Surah followed the theater system into Annapolis High School, but he was unable to complete his education there. While I was at Indian Creek, I served as student government president. I was able to start a nonprofit when I was 16 years old. I competed on 2 varsity sports teams, soccer and baseball. And during that entire time, I was becoming a top candidate for college. As compared to Surah, at the same time, he was being charged as an adult at 17 years old for 25 counts that we will get into a little bit later. At 17
damn bad.
Time at the Anne Arundel County Jail. This is not a juvenile facility. This is an adult jail. He was 17 years old. Surah was smaller than most people. I don't know his exact size at the time when he went in there, but I know for a fact that he was less than 130 pounds. This is mugshot right here, 25 counts. He was indicted by a grand jury at 17 years old. He was eventually switched to serve a sentence at Cheltenham Youth Jail, which is in Prince George's County, Maryland. And that was before he also went back to the general population with the adults in Anne County Jail. We'll get into this over there. Today, the fork in the road continues. I'm now at Davidson College. As you all know, this is the Davidson program. Surah is at Patuxent Institution, a prison in Jessup, Maryland. Okay? Now, I came to Davidson as a Belk Scholar. I got a full academic scholarship, majoring in philosophy and pre-medicine. And I'm now serving my second term as student body president here at Davidson. Okay? Surah is serving a 14-year sentence. He was a prison inmate, not a jail inmate, a prison inmate, Department of Corrections before his 21st birthday. This is where the fork of the road continues to go in different directions. As you can see on the bottom right, this is a photo, it's a copy of Surah's prison ID. Some research findings. I'll go over with you some things that I noticed during the research I was conducting, and hopefully that will set a good foundation for us to understand where Surah is coming from when he has the opportunity to speak. Okay? Now, again, I want to say that when I was conducting my research, I was making sure to get the most truthful information as possible, and that came, in order to do that, that meant that I had to validate some things. So everything I'm presenting here is true, based on at least 2 people's word of an event happening, okay? Surah was born on February 12, 1999 in Prince George's County, Maryland. He grew up with his mother, Rita, and 3 siblings. Some of whom are on the call today. His mother's here today as well. Miss Rita lost her job in 2004 when Surah was 5 years old. And when she lost her job, they were actually homeless for almost a year at 5 years old. After getting out of the homeless shelter, they had unstable housing in PG County, Prince George's County, Maryland, before moving to Annapolis in 2007. When I say unstable, I mean that they were bouncing between properties and homes and living with different people during those 2 or 3 years. Surah's family settled in Robinwood, the community that I just showed a little bit earlier in 2010. That is when we were able to meet because he was moved into the same district that I was in school. In Robinwood, being broke or seeming weak, when I say being broke, I mean being obviously poor or seeming weak, physically and mentally, are 2 of the worst things you can ask for in that community. Surah will elaborate on that a little bit later, but by showing that you don't have any money or that you're not willing to stand up for yourself physically or mentally or verbally, you could be asking for trouble and danger in that community. This is a generational struggle. When Miss Rita, Surah's mom, was 14 years old, her mother died from a lack of proper treatment. She was left to struggle on her own. Her father was not in the picture. Her mother was basically, what she had living in Washington, D.C. With Miss Rita, she was an honor roll student at the time when her mother was in her life. Ever since that death, it made it harder for her to continue that type of success. She ended up dropping out of school and did not graduate from high school. And drugs seemed like the only escape. What I'm trying to show here is a generational struggle. This is not something that's starting with Surah. It's starting early on. We think that the lack of proper treatment. Could have involved racism or just not having access because of the color of your skin to proper treatment. When Sura was in elementary school, he was diagnosed with ADHD and bipolar disorder. He had difficulty focusing in the classroom and he developed insomnia as a child. My prediction, after hearing these circumstances, it seems that insomnia or some of these other difficulties Sura was facing could have been caused by stress. I wouldn't rule that out, but I'm also not an expert in that field. It's just something that I would suppose. School was difficult for Sura. He was teased for being obviously poor. His brother Chris and himself went to school wearing a cycle of clothes, and after that cycle completed and started to repeat itself, people began to understand Sura as not having adequate clothing and being obviously poor, and he was teased and bullied as a result, treated poorly. I can only imagine the type of impact that would have on him. Another thing that Sura was learning from a young age is obvious that he was taught to steal by older folks in the area. This has been confirmed by multiple sources. Sura was a smaller build, so people would get him to go through windows or go up to houses when committing burglaries because people would see him as a child and would have no fear of letting him do whatever he tried to convince people that he was doing. One is also a little timeline right here of some significant events in Sura's life. At 11 years old, Sura watched a man die from being shot in Robinwood. He will elaborate on all these things later, but one thing that I'd like to point out is that when he stole a bike at 12 years old from Hunt Meadow, that was his first time arrested. It seemed like whenever he got caught committing a crime, it seemed like the police or first responders were quicker to get there than they were when a man was dying on the street in his community. He watched a man die at 11 years old. 12 years old, he stole a bike from Hunt Meadow. This is his first time ever arrested. At 13, he watched his older brother get abused by the police on the street in Robinwood. He can talk about this also a little bit later. And he felt helpless. He went to get his mother. She felt helpless. Nobody could do anything because as Sura stepped in, he thought the same thing would happen to him. At 14 years old, Sura got robbed and beaten for his phone. And this is when he started smoking marijuana. We will elaborate on this a little bit later as well. At 15 years old, he started Percocet and he started to develop a life or death mentality. He just didn't care anymore. He was in survival mode, didn't care if he died. Terrible. One thing I like to say about when Sura started marijuana, he was walking back to the recreation center in Robinwood, walking back to his home, and he took a longer route than usual and crossed the back strip in Robinwood. That's how it's known. One of the most dangerous parts of the community. There's some older guys back there smoking some blunts and tell Sura, they tell Sura that he should do it because they want to use him as entertainment. They want to see him get high and laugh at him, whatever. Sura says, no, I don't want to, I'm not going to do it. The guy forces the button in his hand. He says, Sura, you're going to take a puff right now. I'm going to punch you in the chest as hard as I can. Sura tried to fake an inhale, and the guy punched him in the chest and Sura flew to the ground. So Sura got up. The guy said, you can try again. You're going to smoke this blunt right now. He smoked it and, started feeling effects right away, started getting paranoid and anxiety. And the guy told Sura to do it again, or he punched him again. And Sura, that was the first time smoking. That was his experience. You can imagine how he would get to a point where he would develop a life or death mentality. In 2016, Sura was 17 years old. He broke into an Annapolis home and stole some property, and he was indicted by a grand jury in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, charged with burglary in the first degree, theft for less than $1,000, illegal possession of a firearm, wearing, carrying, or transporting a handgun on person, illegal possession of ammunition, possession of a firearm being under 21, and possession of a stolen firearm. This was a grand jury indictment. In addition to the indictment, he was charged by the state for a string of 6 burglaries in Annapolis. The result, he was charged as an adult. As I was saying, when you get charged as an adult, your information is public at the time, and you go to the adult jail usually. That's when I was in high school. We were both in high school. He was spending time at the Jennifer Rose Detention Center in Nashville.